Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm a freelance graphic designer and photographer, and today we're just talking about the transition between the UK and Australia and what it's like to start your own business.
Thank you very much for coming through onto the podcast today. It's got quite a lot to go through. We're very excited to discover about yourself and get to know you more. So, Chloe, would you just take a couple of minutes, introduce yourself, and just let myself and the audience know a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, well, as you said, I'm Chloe. I'm originally from the UK, which is why I have a weird accent.
No one could tell.
I am currently freelance graphic designing, but sometimes dabble in social media, sometimes dabble in photography, music, basically anything creative, sometimes web design and web creation stuff as well. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah,
I guess that's more of your passion. So you said you were from Bristol. What was that like? I guess what brought you over to Adelaide, and are you here permanently, or are you just here essentially just to, I guess, further your portfolio and to learn more skills as it is?
Originally from Bristol in the UK. Came over here for the first time in 2019 for Bible school with our church. So it's just a 4-month course, but the plan was to stay here for 6 months.
Right.
Ended up staying for 9, and then went back because of COVID. When I was here, I just fell in love with the culture of Adelaide and just loved everything about it, especially the beaches, because I don't know if you've been to the UK and you've experienced a beach.
No.
It's just rocks.
Right.
And then mud.
And then it's quite gloomy over there as well.
There's no sun.
No?
It's just rain.
Fair enough. So, I guess, if you are the type of person that loves a little bit more warmth than the humidity.
It's not even the warmth.
No?
It's just the sun.
Just seeing brightness.
I'm so affected by the weather. So if the sun is not out, like my mood will be down. If the sun is out, I'm fine.
Okay.
So and I just think the culture here is so different.
Yeah.
People are different. They're much more friendly, approachable, just nice people.
I guess just, as you said, follows the weather.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Everyone in the UK is always sad because it's always grey and rainy and windy and gross.
Is that, do you think, just the personality of the people within the UK, or is that sort of just that culture that's sort of instilled within them?
I think probably a mixture of both, because especially Bristol, it's very diverse. We have lots of people immigrate into Bristol. So those people probably are not as affected by the weather as we are, even though they probably come from countries that have much better weather than us. I think just their culture in general, like there's so many Africans and I love it, but they are always so joyful.
Yep.
No matter what's happening, they're always so happy and they can always see like the brighter side of life. Whereas English people are just always looking for the negative, always looking to like belittle someone or look down on someone. Right. So, yeah.
And I guess, do you think that stems from, because I do know in terms of, and I've heard a lot from people that obviously descend through like African regions and whatnot. It is like community driven. They're all very, very tight knit. They're very focused on having those events, being very expressive to one another, where I haven't obviously seen firsthand, and I think probably you're one of the first people from Britain that I've had a proper sit down and got to discover. But do you find the culture is obviously with the British culture and whatnot, is it as tight-knit and as focused, or is it more people are just looking for the next thing and just focusing on career and whatnot?
Yeah, I think it really depends what spaces you're in, because growing up I was always in in Christian spaces. So as you probably would expect with Christians, community is everything. Yep. The church is everything. So if you're in a Christian space, you're more likely to value community and value relationship with people, whereas people that are not within that community are more like tunnel visioned, I'm focusing on myself. And that's not fair to say for everyone, but I think that's probably what I've found, especially as I've gotten older. Maybe not so much in school, because I think in school everyone's about friends and, you know, what friendship
just
group
lost
you're
in your own little world.
Yeah, and, you know, it's all about cliques and, you know, the stereotypical things that school is about. But especially as I got older and I went into the big wide world of work, everyone is out on their own adventure, trying to just, you know, make their own way, which is fair, but I think it's very important to remember that there are definitely people around you that are bringing you up into that. And so you shouldn't just forget them as soon as you've got to where you want to go.
Correct.
Which is kind of the culture that is set, especially in the creative industry.
Right.
I think.
And I know, I think I definitely can agree in terms of that mindset. And I think it's not just a creative industry, but I think it's quite universal.
Yes.
I mean, for myself, coming from, you know, finance background, I find there are a lot of people within that same thing. There's the tunnel vision, put your head down, don't care about anybody else, and then try to make it to the top. But I think we all need to take a step back and just connect with others. But sort of going to what you said about you know, school and whatnot, how did you find the school system and just sort of your experience with school in Bristol and the UK in general?
I mean, I don't know too much about school here because I obviously never experienced it. But school in the UK is probably quite different.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a very, very public school.
Right.
So it was not up there in the world of the academics.
Fair enough.
Yeah, my grandma went there and my mum went to the same school.
Okay.
And they kept the same curtains. So I had my year 7 year group photo in front of the same curtains that my grandma did, and she's like 70.
Wow.
So you just...
She did primary school there as well?
No, just high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you notice that in her picture, even though the camera quality is worse, the colours of the curtains are so much brighter than my one because
so you can see the transition of it fading
which
over
is
time.
kind of cool, but also kind of a bit gross because they haven't washed the curtains in 60 years.
Depends on the perspective.
We'll go with cool. We'll go with sentimental. But yeah, no, the schooling that I experienced was very interesting. I think back then, I say that as if it was so many years ago. It wasn't that long ago. But I think back then, things like mental health and learning disabilities and all of that kind of stuff was not spoken about at all, or was just kind of starting to be understood and starting to, you know, take a front foot. So my school didn't really have much for kids that struggled, but we had a lot of kids that struggled just because of the area that it was in. So unfortunately, it meant that a lot of our classes were really disruptive. Our learning environment was just not good. And it also didn't help that the building itself was really old. So the heating didn't work, the aircon didn't work. So if it was cold, you'd be wearing your coat and you would bring extra layers to wrap up. If it was hot, they'd be like, you can go put your PE kit on because you're going to sweat otherwise.
Really?
Yeah, because the buildings are so old. Just obviously with the history of English architecture. Yeah. Everything is old. The roads are thin and small.
I've noticed that, yeah.
Designed for horse and carriage.
Fair enough. And then I guess because of how quickly they've expanded and I guess sort of developed residential areas and developed a lot of the infrastructure there, they haven't really had the opportunity to then go back and revisit and try and change those things, have they?
Yeah, no. Especially not where I grew up.
Okay. Because
even though Bristol in itself is probably one of the nicer cities in the UK, at some point it was voted the most livable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, quite recently, actually. I think this year it didn't make the top 5 for the first time in a very long time, so that was big news. But yes, but my area, which was just outside of Bristol, was not the best.
So close to the livable.
Close.
Yeah, just hitting on the borderline.
Yeah.
Okay, that's still good.
A bit rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get half a point.
It just builds you up.
Exactly. But I mean, me having heard of Bristol, I know growing up there was many instances of YouTubers and things of that, being based out of Bristol and whatnot, and hearing a lot about it. What is it apart from like the whole school thing, what is life like? Is Bristol big? Comparable to Adelaide, I guess.
I think it's a similar size to Adelaide, but I reckon the vibe is slightly more Melbourne.
Right.
Especially in the city. Okay. So in the city, it's always so busy and really student heavy. Okay. Because University of Bristol is one of the good unis in the UK, very prestigious.
Okay.
But yeah, loads of international students come to Bristol, but just in general, I think, not so much here, but in the UK, people move cities for university.
I see.
So it's very common for lots of people to come to Bristol for uni.
Right.
So in the city, it's very student heavy, which means that there's always events happening. Nightlife is massive in Bristol. And like even like shops and like clothing stores, they're all open till like 9 every day. Whereas here, if you work 9 to 5, you're not shopping till the weekend.
Yeah, or if you're lucky enough on Thursdays.
Yes, I forget about Thursdays or Fridays if you're in the city.
That's true. No, but I think that's just an Adelaide thing. I've noticed.
Oh.
It is, because even funnily enough, like me, I grew up in New South Wales. Very small town, population like 10, 15,000. Of a small town called Griffith. So smack bang, the middle of rural New South Wales, middle of all the major cities. And I remember when we used to live there, Woolies was open till like 12 a.m. and Coles was open till 12 a.m. At one stage, we had one that was 24 hours.
Yes, that's common.
And then we came to Adelaide, and it was about like 9:30. I think we got the the removal truck into the house, and we went. We're like, oh, let's go get some shopping done. We get to the car park and dead, nothing. So, did you fall into that same trap that I did? Or?
Yes, and I still do now because I'm still not used to it. Yeah, everything's 24 hours in the UK.
Yep.
Like all of the major grocery stores are 24 hours. McDonald's is 24 hours. Yeah. So that was always a win. But yeah, like lots of places are 24 hours or they're open till really late. So that's one thing that I miss. If I could bring something from the UK to Adelaide to make it better, it would just be the opening times of shops and stuff like that. Because I find that, I mean, I'm lucky that I work from home. So if I need to, go to the shops, I can during the day. But if I was working in 9 to 5, I would find it so hard to like do Christmas shopping or even like birthday shopping for people. Like it would be so difficult to only do that on the weekend when everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
I would not want to go shopping.
That's horrendous.
But also your delivery times here are not great. Like Amazon in the UK, same day delivery. I order at 10 a.m, it's there by 6 p.m.
Really? I think we're just falling behind in everything.
Yeah, it takes like 3 to 5 working days to get Amazon here.
That's all right. Adelaide will catch up eventually.
One day.
In one decade or another. But wow, okay. So Bristol is definitely, I think, a place to visit.
Yes, a lot of people would liken it to London. Yeah. But it's smaller than London.
Is it close to London?
Like an hour and a half.
Oh, okay. Drive or by public?
Yeah, drive. I mean, you could get the train and it'd be about the same.
Okay.
But driving to the outskirts and then tubing it in, that's what we tend to do.
Oh, fair enough.
Because you don't want to drive into central London.
No, I've heard there's a lot of congestion costs and
yes, if there's a red line on the road and you're just in a queue, like you're not even, like it's not like someone's had a crash and you're in a queue, it's like you stop at a traffic light, congestion charge.
Really?
In some areas. Because they don't want people driving there. They want people to use the public transport.
Right.
So they put congestion charges in everywhere.
See, a funny thing I saw the other day was, and it sort of made me laugh, was the congestion charge. Some guy on the internet sort of came up and said, the congestion charge is more of a hoax just to get the rich people to be able to drive into the city. and just to have them be able to have the luxury of driving and like, 30 pounds there. It's nothing.
Yeah, they blink and they've got 30 pounds.
That's true. Whereas everyone else sneezes and they lose 30 pounds.
That's it. Because they've just driven through London.
But I've heard the economy in England is definitely pretty bad.
Yes,
but that's
absolutely. The cost of living crisis there is crazy in comparison.
Would you want to go back to like live there, or have you chosen to sort of?
Yeah, I don't think I would want to live in the UK again.
Okay.
I think the lifestyle here is so much better. It's much more relaxed, but not just like so chill that you don't ever do anything.
Yep.
But like when you want to relax, you can relax, and when you want to go, you can go.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, even if you want to relax, everyone else around you is still go, go, go. Everything else is around you is still go, go, go. So it's really hard to switch off and just be like, oh, without going abroad. But then you obviously have the luxury of Paris being like an hour flight away from Bristol.
Because I've heard like people just take either the underground, is it train?
Yes.
And they can just take their cars into the train and drive off to France, or I've heard so many people go to like Spain very regularly. So
yeah, I mean,
there is that luxury.
I went back to the UK in February and we took a day trip to Paris. So we just got on the plane at like, I think it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and then we were there the whole day, got into central Paris around midday, just because of getting from the airport to the centre. Yeah. And then we flew back out at 9 p.m.
Wow.
It was a very long day, so I wouldn't recommend going for only a day. But
it's still possible.
Yeah, like you would fly to Melbourne for the day for like business or whatever.
Yeah, and then come back.
Yeah, it's the same as that.
But it doesn't have the same feeling as Paris.
Oh, not quite. And you need a passport. This time you can't just wing it and go domestic. Oh yeah,
because I mean, previously wasn't it the case that when they were part of the European Union, it was a little bit easier?
It was easier. Yeah. You still had to take your passport, but there's lots of privileges that we have now lost because we left the EU.
I see. But I guess there's benefits and there's pros and cons to every aspect of that decision that was made.
Yeah, definitely.
That's for everyone back there to deal with.
Absolutely, I'm not there anymore. It's not my problem.
How have you found, apart from the shops being horrible timing, how have you found the whole transition to Australia, but Adelaide?
I think I'm pretty lucky in that the reason that I came over was to be part of a community. It wasn't like I was just moving over for a job or just moving over for the sake of moving over. It was, I'm coming over to be part of this Bible college, and so I know that I'm going to meet people, and these people already consider me to be part of the family because we're part of a global kind of church family.
Right, okay.
So I think I was very lucky in that as soon as I landed, I was picked up by a bunch of people that I'd never met, but kind of already felt like I'd known for a long time.
Okay.
So they picked me up to me for breakfast and all of that kind of stuff. So my first initial time here was just the best, which is probably what kind of pushed me to come and be here more permanently.
Right.
So I think the transition was pretty seamless, to be honest, but I think that's mainly because of the community that I was a part of and still am a part of now. Because even when I went back during COVID, I was still really close to people that I'd built a relationship with here. I would FaceTime them all the time, and I'm still like really close friends with a lot of those people now. I think the transition was pretty seamless, and culturally it's different, but it's not so different that I stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, you feel alienated.
No, definitely. I've never felt that. There's obviously been times where someone has said something and I don't know the slang because I'm from England, or I say something that they don't understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, like aubergine. You don't say aubergine here.
Aubergine. I've heard of that before.
Eggplant.
Okay. Yes. Aubergine.
Yeah, you don't say aubergine.
No, there's I've definitely seen a lot of when you get bored. You watch those shoot videos of comparisons between the UK and Australia and whatnot, and yeah, there's some definitely a lot of things that come up. You go, I understand as well. Like, what was the biggest sort of cultural shock that you found coming to Australia?
It's a great question. I actually don't know.
Yeah?
Because I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And because I was so young, like when I was 19 when I first came over.
Okay.
So I guess as a 19-year-old, because you've just been in school until you're 18, you haven't massively experienced
you don't have a lot of things to refer to.
Yeah. Like it's not like I was, out in the working world and experienced all of this stuff and then moved here and had that kind of culture shock. It was like, I'm still adapting to life.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've really experienced like a whoa moment where I was like, that's different, or I'm not used to that. I think probably the biggest one was the shops.
Right.
Because I always used to go shopping late. I'd be like, I need something, I'm just going to go now. It's like 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your driving tests, that was weird.
Really?
Like, you have to drive 75 hours before
Correct.
you can...
And you have to record every single one of them into logbook.
You just get your theory test, you pass that, you can pass that on your 17th birthday. You can then, as soon as you've got that book in for your practical, as soon as you've got that, you have your full license.
Now, I've heard something, correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard that in the UK, in terms of the driver's license, it is a manual and an automatic driver's license, whereas here it doesn't matter?
Yes, which I think the UK make more sense on.
Yeah.
Because if you pass in a manual, you can drive a manual and an automatic. If you drive in an automatic,
you can't drive manual.
You can't drive manual.
Right.
Because it's so different. And lots of my friends here have passed in an automatic and then they've had an accident, or for whatever reason they've ended up having to drive a manual, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, that's dangerous. Right. You have to do it at the right time, and if you stall, like, you don't have to recover quickly. There's so many things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the UK, they've done well there.
Did you go for a manual license?
Absolutely.
Okay, amazing. Because I never learned how to drive manual, so that's horrible.
What?
Yeah. We used to have a manual car. I drove it for 2 weeks. I did a burnout once by accident because I half disengaged the clutch.
Good.
And floored. Mm-hmm. And the last thing you want to see is a Toyota Corolla with its front wheels just smoking up the whole traffic light.
No, you don't want that.
No, but I decided to do that just for the sake of it. And then my dad realised I'm a lost cause and ended up selling the car. So, yeah, you won't be finding me in a manual anytime soon.
I love it.
But I've always been so fascinated.
I think they're so much better.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why. I just feel like when I'm driving an automatic, I just feel like I'm not doing anything.
That is true.
So I'm just like, I'm going to fall asleep behind the wheel, or I'm just not going to pay attention because I'm just not... I don't have to
focused.
Yeah, I don't have to be aware as much of my surroundings, because if I need to brake, I just go brake.
That's true.
Whereas in a manual, I have to, think
hit
about
the clutch, put it into neutral. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you do have a solid left calf, though. Yeah,
it's a great workout. Who needs to do leg day when you can just drive manual?
Yeah, just switch legs. Just switch legs, drive in the middle of the city, but then it's Adelaide. You probably get 3 clutch dumps before you're at the end of the city.
You'd be surprised.
Really?
Especially in rush hour. Sometimes I get really frustrated, and that's when I wish I had an automatic.
Fair enough.
Because I'm like...
just constantly hitting the clutch.
I'm doing it like a TikTok dance or something.
Yeah, well, leg day every day.
Good answer.
But that's great. So I guess, what sort of things have you done in your stint here in Adelaide? I mean, you mentioned that within Bristol, you finished your primary school and high school, but you didn't go to university, did you?
No. So I did apply to go to uni, and I got accepted. And then I deferred to come here to do Bible college.
I see.
So I was going to do fashion photography. And then because we went back to COVID, I just deferred again, and then never.
It's just been deferred indefinitely.
I'm still on my gap year at 24.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's great.
I think life teaches you more than tertiary studies.
And I would argue, especially within the creative industry, I don't necessarily agree that degrees are essential.
Right, yeah.
Especially what I do, because everything that I've done has been self-taught, and lots of the jobs that I've had or clients that I've had have just wanted experience, and they just want to see what you can do rather than, hey, here's my degree. Which has been a blessing, because obviously I don't have that piece of paper that says I can do graphic design. Yeah. I just have a portfolio that's like, oh, she can kind of, make things look all right. So, yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, that is more important. It's not about what someone... I mean, it is about what someone knows, but in the sort of general sense, it's not about what someone knows based off of a book they've read or based off of a video they've watched, but have they had hands-on experience? And have they actually been in those scenarios that a potential employer is looking for, and how they can deal with it. So I think it's a very important thing, and I've noticed there's been a little bit of a shift within a lot of industries where they are going towards the aspect of, okay, we'll give you a shot if you can prove to us you know how to do the job. But it's still, I think, very difficult. And within the creative industry, I mean, have you just stuck around the graphic design photography, or have you done other things?
So when I got out of school, I was actually working at a trampoline park.
Okay.
And the reason that I got into kind of all of this was because at school I did creative media as one of my subjects.
Yep.
So I already loved that kind of like editorial, graphic design, photography kind of vibe. But then because of that, and I was making these short like little videos, they were then at the trampoline park like, oh, Chloe, do you want to help with social media? Obviously, at the time, I had no idea that you could make an entire job out of doing someone's social media. But that was kind of how I got into it. Okay. So most of my earlier roles were all just social media. So I did social media for that. I did social media for a gym. And then I started to get my own clients from that gym job because I had PTs that were like, oh, can you help me do this? And I'm like, sure. So then I was like, next thing I know, I'm making them like Instagram reels or just like short informational videos that then also have like a graphic tile that goes along with them that they can like post together. Okay. And so that was kind of how I fell into it. Like everything just kind of started at, hey, Chloe, can you help us make some random videos of people bouncing on trampolines into my career now.
And is that something that you are still working with other like employers, and are you working with some PTs here, or have you established something of your own?
Yeah. Well, the visa that I'm on here last year I had to do farm work. Okay. Or construction. Yeah. So I was digging pools for 3 months, which was
sounds fun.
Interesting.
I'll make a couple of social media posts about that.
I did.
Yeah.
And the farm that I was working on, he was I ended up doing construction on his farm, which is bizarre, but he
So you decided to combine the construction and the farm together.
Again, I fell into that. Right. Fell into that. So he had just bought this farm that he was doing up. He was an interior designer by trade. I see. So he had got these sheds that he was doing up. One of them is a restaurant now. So he wanted me to help him, paint the interiors and insulate. So I was insulating all these things and painting them, and I was like, yeah, I'm like got the builder.
Jack of all trades.
But then on the side, I was doing videos of it all to help him. And so from there, then he's given me some clients in the architecture world. So one of my clients is an architect. And for him, he's got so many little side hustles. And so from that was then when I started my business here, which it's called Kairos Design. Okay. And so I do have an employed role, which is part-time, but what the majority of my time is taken up by is clients. And so I still have my PT clients in the UK who just want me to create social media tiles, because obviously I can't do videos for them right now. Yeah. That's a bit hard from the other side of the world. Definitely. But I do the web design stuff as well. So they're like, hey, Chloe, can you do this? I'm like, no worries.
I think that's the beauty of the creative space, is there are so many avenues that you can go down, and especially with how the world's been transitioning and whatnot. So how have your clients sort of found that transition from you being there in person and doing those videos to then just doing those like social media clips? So are you sort of getting them to record themselves and then sort of send those clips over to you, and then you're able to compilate everything, or
pretty much? Okay. Yeah, I think COVID was that blessing because everyone who was running a small business, or just everyone in general, had to suddenly go from this in-person interactive kind of marketing to everything has to be digital. Like if I want to make money, I have to immerse myself in social media, and I have to, especially if my business is me. If you're a PT, your business is you. Of course. You have to be comfortable being on camera. Yep. So I think, especially with that particular client, through COVID, she got used to that. But then as soon as it kind of eased out a little bit, she then retracted and was like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. Right. But then with me being behind the camera, it kind of helped her be more comfortable, because she felt like she was talking to me, not all the people that were potentially watching her on social media. So then now that I've come here and she's still there, she's now comfortable again, and her videos have gone like this. Right. She's like invested in her own equipment, and so they look amazing. She's got a microphone now, and her whole business has gone from PTing in person to online coaching, and that's her main form of revenue now. Okay. Is online coaching, which I never thought would be a thing. Yeah. Like I would much prefer an in-person PT, but I think COVID made everyone kind of
Yeah.
be in their own bubble.
It is. I think COVID was the sort of catalyst to that. COVID allowed people to explore those options, but then again, I mean, there's aspects of there's social media as the thing that you manage for those clients, and you know how significant it is to be able to sort of see so many different people from all over the world, and it may even be the case that there's something about that person in Bristol doing that sort of workout and those workout videos that sort of engages you more than any PT in Adelaide, or anywhere else around the world, that you can sort of tune in, look at that information, and really connect with them a lot better.
And I think that's the interesting thing, is that even though everything is now online, it's still based on community.
Yeah.
It's people still are wanting that same thing. They've just realized that they don't necessarily need to go to that same conventional place that you would stereotypically go to get it. Like, I don't need to go to the gym and get myself a PT in order to have that same community feeling.
Yeah.
I can
work out from home.
Yeah. And they've built this beautiful community online where they've got people all around the UK who then at one time they will meet up at a place and they'll go do a hike or something.
Right.
So now you've just gone from, I could know these 12 people from down the road to I've now met all of these people from across the UK that I never would have had it not been for this person making videos on how to do a press up. Yeah. Which is so cool.
And that just shows I think the beauty of what the internet was intended for and how well it can actually connect people.
Absolutely.
And I guess going further within, I guess, your business, and do you mainly just do graphic design photography, or like what other aspects are involved with your day-to-day activities?
It really depends on the client. Mainly, my favorite thing to do is actually like brand identity and logo design. I love it because it means that I'm constantly coming up with new things. Whereas when you're doing graphic design for a client for their social media, you need it to be consistent. So everything kind of has to look similar or look the same. So my day-to-day really differs because, like I have one client that's a charity and they are putting on different events, so then they want a different brand for that event, which I love, creating new kind of concepts around, like Mother's Day or like something like that. That's what I'm currently doing at the moment. So a lot of my days are taken up by social media graphic design as opposed to print design, because print is just not what people want anymore.
And it takes a long time as well, doesn't it?
I love print. I'm a sucker for print.
Really?
Yeah. I'd much rather hold something than like see it on my phone.
Yeah.
Because I'll lose that. If I don't save it, I'll lose it. And I'm like, where have I seen that? I don't know. Whereas if I'm like given something, I'm like, I'll remember that. And then I'll keep it and then put it on my fridge.
And do you have, I guess, a different process when it does come to print sketches and sort of developing that print material?
Kind of. Yeah. I think, again, it really depends on what they're printing. Because a lot of the time it's people just want updates to business cards, or they just need this flyer but they need it tomorrow, or so you don't really have that time to
that creative moment.
Because people, what I find especially with businesses that don't I don't want to use the word value, but they undervalue graphic design and they don't understand the whole process behind it all. They're just like, we have this event coming up in a week and I need 800 flyers by Thursday. They'll just send it to you and expect you to be able to do it like that. Because they don't think that there's that much to it if they don't understand it, which is what I found with a lot of people. Whereas if you have someone that really values it or really understands it, they ask you 2 months in advance because they know that you're going to get something much better if you give them the time to do it and explore different concepts and whatnot.
And have you found with your clients that you obviously would have had to educate them in sort of letting them know what the importance of those first iterations, second iterations, and workshopping those things? Have you found they've really taken in that information? They've been actually welcoming to it, or
yeah, if they're consistent clients,
yeah,
if they're just a one-off, like say someone's getting married and they need wedding invites,
yeah,
and they, you know, they're not interested in coming back again anytime soon because hopefully you only get married once.
fingers crossed.
Those people don't care as much.
Yeah.
The consistent people slowly over time get a greater understanding and have much more appreciation for what you're doing, which is the same with anything.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know about something, you're not going to care about something. The more you know about it, the more you're going to care about it, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
So yeah, and I also think that people really undervalue it in terms of money. I think people probably, or what I've experienced is that people expect something to be really cheap because that's kind of how much they determine it to be worth.
Yep.
Whereas, like, I know that my time takes, like, it's, you know, it's a skill. In the same way that you would want to be correctly paid for doing finance, I would want to be correctly paid for designing something.
Exactly.
So people generally think that, you know, I can just give you $20 and you'll make me this logo. And I'm like, oh, did you know that, like, some of the best logos were probably, like, $50,000?
Yeah.
Like, that kind of thing. And I've even noticed the difference between Australia and the UK. I was looking this up earlier, actually. But if you're a senior graphic designer in London, you'd get like £42,000 for your job.
Yeah.
Here, to do the same thing, in Adelaide, you'd only get about $68,000, which is
Conversion rates
a lot less. So for the same job, I would get the equivalent of about $78,000 here, which is like 10 grand difference.
Yeah. So about 10%, 10-15% variance.
Yeah, and I think that's probably obviously because London again is London.
Yeah.
But generally in the UK, the salaries are quite similar, whereas Australia is a lot bigger. So if I went to Sydney and I was doing graphic design, I would get paid more there than I would in Adelaide.
Yeah.
But Sydney is too busy for me.
You know, comparing it to London, again, I'm assuming cost of living is quite high compared to Adelaide and Sydney, and I would assume that Sydney and London will be very comparable. But for yourself, working in Adelaide with the clientele that you have, how have you sort of navigated being able to figure out what your cost is and what your value is to those clients?
Good question. I think I was lucky in that when I first got here, a lady from my church hired me to do graphic design for their business. And in that role, I was getting $35 an hour. So I knew that if I was to go out on my own, I could definitely get $35 an hour. Now, whether I thought that was too low or was fair is a different story. Because, yeah, again, it really depends on the client. And I actually don't have a set rate. I do change it per client based on conversations that we have and based on an understanding that I can get from them about what value they put on what they want from me.
Yep.
So, for example, people that are in a more creative role, I know that they will have a greater value, so will therefore be more willing to pay more. Whereas people who don't have a clue, they just want as cheap as they can get. But I really value relationship.
Yep.
So I'll always aim for the relationship rather than just the money.
Yep.
Because if I can build a relationship, then I know that at some point, if I were to change my fees, they're going to still honor that because they want to then honor the relationship that they've built.
Correct.
So yeah, like, you know, for one of my clients, I will charge $35 an hour, and that for them is really great.
Yep.
But then over time, I've started charging them more, and they've also wanted to pay me more because they valued me more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I still don't know if I've, you know, hit the jackpot with what I charge people, but I think I've definitely learnt more about how much people are willing to pay here for things. And
in terms of, I guess, you know, going on to that hourly sort of pay structure, I know within the creative industry there is a bit of a divide where, again, you know, the client will come to you and say, okay, you're going to spend 12 hours on a project. I'll pay you 35 times 12. And then there are other instances where you charge on per project. Essentially, I can spend 5 hours, I can spend 12 hours, I can spend 50 hours. But this is the set price. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you think, your customers sort of have reciprocated to that, where if you have in the instance approached them and said, look, I can spend, a number of hours, it varies. However, for the overall project and for the quality that I'm giving you, this is the set price.
Yeah. So that's kind of an issue that I've had with some people is that, again, they've really undervalued what they're wanting. So they've come to me and they're like, okay, I want this website and it needs to have 16 pages, but I only have $1,000. I'm like, okay, so we're working not with a lot here.
Yeah.
So I said, in that instance, hey, I can do this budget that you've given me of $1,000. This is how many hours I can work on this project. Yeah. If it exceeds that, then I'll give you like a couple hours leeway. But if it exceeds that and we're still not at a place where you're happy with it, I'll have to charge you an hourly rate on top of that.
Right.
So I'll just divide the set price by the hourly rate to work out how many hours I can realistically spend on it without it just ruining my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has been a tricky one because I think that the people that, again, undervalue it go, this is my budget, but it still expect the world for not a lot of money. So yeah, I think fixed fee can be really difficult if there's no understanding there.
Correct. And I think that's just where over time you really have to invest in educating people and hoping that people do take the time to understand. It's not the instance of they'll go to a plumber and say, can you get this job done? The plumber will essentially, it's based off the they're paying for the expertise. They're not paying for the hours. And a great example of that was I read somewhere where a plumber essentially, there was some sort of issue with the plumbing in the house and took the plumber half an hour, get the job done, charged about $800. And the customer's happy to pay for it because their needs getting solved. They don't consider the fact that it took half an hour. They understand that it's the expertise. And I think within the creative industry, that really needs to be focused on, and especially people that want to pursue that and have hire somebody in the future to say, okay, do photography, do videography, do graphic design, website development. They need to understand how well do they know that job.
Yeah, and I think even things like phones now, because you can get an iPhone and you can shoot your own video and it can be relatively good quality, people are just like, oh, well, I can just do it myself. Yeah. Same with things like Canva. I really don't like Canva, but all of my teacher friends are like, I love it because I can make a good PowerPoint. But I'm like, because you have this access to these things that are great tools, but I think that because they're great tools, it then means that, I can do this myself in 10 minutes. I then don't value a person that has spent time crafting their skill and actually knows the things behind design that people just miss out.
Because it oversimplifies it. I've noticed, especially with Canva, with those sort of things, it really just makes, it's good. It's got a beautiful UI, very user-friendly. But within the creative industry, there are those nuances and those really specific things that takes a lot of time to sort of marinate and really build on and to perfect. One thing I wanted to sort of touch on was, is there a specific industry or a specific type of clientele that you like? And in terms of referring to that clientele, I'm assuming that for yourself, you have a style that you do most of your work in that really just resonates with you. Yeah,
I mean, I've had quite a vast range of different clients. I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a favorite, but there's definitely people that I would avoid.
Right.
Just because I don't really enjoy it as much. Like, if you're in finance land or in that kind of...
Just PowerPoints, that's all it is.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I had this one client who was a consultant. She was doing project management and she literally just needed me to make PowerPoints for her clients. So I found that really tedious, but pays the bills.
Yep.
So there's definitely industries that there's not much room for creativity. It's just, I need this to be able to communicate something.
Yeah, just make it look a little bit pretty, but
but it has a very structured purpose.
Yeah.
Like in hospitals, for example, you can't have a really pretty poster because it needs to have these things on it.
Correct.
It needs to have this information. It can't, and it needs to be this size because this needs to be the main thing. Do you know what I mean? There's not much room for
And these specific colors to really emphasize.
It's not like doing, for example, I do lots of the graphic design for our church youth Instagram and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It's not like with that where I can play around and really explore with colors and fonts and different things because the main thing doesn't need to be the main thing.
Yeah.
You can have a lot more flexibility with it. Okay. Whereas like, finance, hospitals, those kind of things, you have to be very structured.
Yeah.
And so there's not much room for creativity. You just have to pop, 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 get it done, tick box, happy client, happy life.
Because I think there's a certain benefit to it, and I think, as you said, it gets the bills paid. And I think having that structure really, you don't really have to think. You sort of, it's like going bowling and you put the barriers up. You could throw the ball, but as long as you've got such a rigid, I guess, guideline to follow, you can do whatever you want. It'll still get the end project done. Whereas the creative flow, and if you have that, there's a little bit more risk to it. But I think it's more rewarding. What is your specific type of design, and what is your style of I guess, production?
I got asked this the other day, and I just said, I really, despite everything I've just said, I really love simplicity, even though I like to be creative with it. Yep. It's like a creative simplicity where you're not like going so abstract that you have no idea what's going on. There's still that kind of abstract flair to it, but what's attractive to most people is simplicity. Right. If the design is easy to understand, people love it more than something that's really, really complex and quite overwhelming. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I really love curves. That's not really a like kind of genre or anything like that. But I think if you were to describe it, it would be modern. Yep. But
very minimalist.
Yes, minimalistic, simple. I really love black and white for some reason, but not pure black and not pure white.
Right, just shades.
Yes.
Okay. No, I think there are subtle beauties to it, and for so long in terms of the creative industry, there has been those big, bold, bright colors that you sort of look at it and you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I've just got so much information just smashed into my face, and you get so overloaded with your mental processes. But I definitely think, as in general, there has been quite a big shift towards the minimalist, very subtle, and keep everything basic but add slight.
Yeah, because even then you find that a lot of powerful designs are really simple, but they use really bold colors. So like, I'm trying to think of examples, but you'll have a really simple typeface and then maybe a really simple illustration, but it won't just be black and white, it will be like white, but with a really bold pink or bold red. Yep. And that's really powerful in itself, as opposed to just like black and white, or the opposite of that, where every color of the rainbow is involved, and then you're like, ah.
That definitely. Again, color can convey emotion, can convey a number of things, but when used in the right way.
Yes.
One thing I wanted to touch on in terms of your, sort of business and graphic design and whatnot. What's been your most, I guess, happiest and a project that you've done that's given you the most sense of satisfaction?
Good question. I think my voluntary stuff. So again, for our church, I volunteer doing a lot of the graphic design. And I think just the nature of it, you kind of see people's reactions, and because a lot of the time with graphic design for clients, You give it to the client, they then take it and run off with it. You don't ever see feedback other than from them themselves. You don't see who it's actually aimed at.
Yeah.
So you don't ever get that kind of like, it's like, say I built a bridge or something and then I died, like Isn't Barking the Brunel in Bristol, he didn't even finish building his bridge and then he died, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Or he died pretty soon after it finished. Okay. So you never got to see the benefits of his bridge, right? Yeah. Whereas this, if I make something, I can see the people that it's for reacting to it and how it's impacting them. Yeah. So we had a summer camp in January and we made a bunch of like cool stickers that they can put on their phones and water bottles, and there was a whole bunch of graphics that we made for that, and it was really deliberate and we really aimed it at them. Yeah. And now, even 5 months later, these kids are still using it on their, like they've stuck it on the back of their phones now, like they've still got these like little God did stickers on there, and I'm like, for me, like that's such a massive win and that's so rewarding because I think it's cool and I would use it, but I'm not the audience. I'm not who it's for. It's for like school kids.
Yeah.
And now it's impacting their lives on a day-to-day basis. And I just love that. I love that I can see that and that they get excited about that. It's not something that they think is lame or they think is boring. They're like, oh, that's cool. And I'll show all my friends and
Yeah, and it's not that monetary. Of course, in this day and age, money is, it pays the bills. It's definitely a sense of satisfaction to an extent. But I can definitely understand the fact that, 5 months later, the fact that those kids still are reminded by something that you created. Yeah. Would bring such satisfaction.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then they still want more. They're like, oh, can we do this or can we do that? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
So is that something that you would also want to do, is sort of take that time to teach those kids if they had an interest to go down the same path as
definitely
yourself?
That's definitely something that I've thought about doing because I have actually played guitar since I was 4.
Okay.
And so from that I've taught quite a few different people how to play guitar just because I've learnt myself.
Yeah.
So with graphic design, I guess, and photography is, well, I don't want to just keep this information to myself. Like I haven't been to uni, so there's no piece of paper that says I can do it, but I have the experience, so I can teach you what I've learnt from
hands-on experience.
Yes, from being on the job. And I think it's been quite cool. Lots of those kids now are playing guitars on stage and stuff. And I'm like, hey, good job.
That's amazing. And that definitely brings a sense of pride to yourself as well.
Yeah.
So you've really been around the whole creative sort of scene, the photography, graphic design, music. Mm-hmm. How did you get into music?
Well, I grew up in church and there was this one guy, his name was Roger.
Right. Good old Rog.
Big up Roger. What a guy.
Shout out to Rog.
But he played guitar at our church and I just thought he was so cool.
Okay.
Ever since I was literally 3 years old.
Yeah.
And so for my 4th birthday, apparently, I don't remember this, but I asked for a guitar. So then I got a guitar and my auntie started teaching me and I paid her 2p a lesson because I didn't want her to do it for free. So I'm like, Mom, can I have 2p? And then I'll give her 2p every single lesson as if that was, beneficial for her.
It's
a good practice though.
Yeah.
And then I did guitar lessons all the way through school.
Okay.
I wrote my first song when I was 7. And it was about, I don't know if you have it much in Australia because you don't really have rain. Well,
here and there.
In Adelaide, you don't really have rain
Just
that
a bit
much.
of a drizzle.
Yeah, but I don't know, if you were at school and it was raining outside, you didn't get to go in the playground, you had to be inside.
Yeah.
And I loved that because then I got to draw. So I wrote a song that was called Wet Played. It was about being inside instead of outside. And it was great.
Surely we could get some sort of,
Recording? No, I remember the chorus, but I don't remember anything else.
I'm sure we could take the time to make a production of it.
Let's do it. Music video, wait for it to rain.
Why
wait
not?
6 months for that.
I think we could probably get 30% of the job done.
Yeah.
And then the sun will just ruin everything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Maybe we can add a bright spin to it.
Maybe in the bridge, we'll just change that from being about it being raining and rubbish outside into now it's sunny.
We'll work on it.
Great, sounds good.
Now, at 7, you created a song. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it just didn't stop there. Surely there would have been some other aspect of it that you sort of built on and worked towards.
Yeah, I mean, I then have just been kind of writing ever since.
Okay.
I wrote a lot of stuff, a lot of Christian stuff.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, so June, which was peak COVID times in England, I don't know if you were in lockdown here still, I don't think you were.
2020. Oh, those are some great times. Yeah, definitely. You know, the masks, the
hand sanitizer, toilet roll shortage.
Oh, that was the time when I actually worked at a supermarket.
Oh.
And we had, you would not believe, any other day, these people are on their strollers, arthritis in the knees, the hips are gone, you know, they've got the titanium rods down the leg, crawling under the door. The door was about this far open, and I had grandpas crawling under, running to get to the toilet paper.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I never had a toilet roll shortage. Myself, I just bought toilet roll at the convenient time.
It just
and
happened
thankfully
to be
never
there.
run out.
No, we had to smuggle it out the back of the store, so it was a great experience.
That's crazy.
I'm sure, yeah, you weren't spending your time. You're probably doing a lot more useful stuff.
Yeah, well, during
your
COVID,
writing, huh?
I landed back in the UK from here at the week that COVID kind of all blew
Took
up
off.
in our faces.
Yeah.
And so for the first few months, I was actually working in the hospitals cleaning the COVID wards.
Right.
Because I didn't have a job coming back. I was 20.
Yeah.
And I was like, well...
So why stay home? Why not just get deep into COVID land?
Because I needed money. I needed a job. When I went back, I didn't move back in with my mum.
Okay.
I moved out into a little flat that was owned by our church.
I see.
So I needed to make money to pay rent.
Yeah.
So I was like, what can I do? I can clean.
Let's be best friends with COVID.
So let's go get COVID.
If you can't beat them, join them.
But I never got COVID from working in the hospitals.
Okay.
So that's a fun fact. I was just cleaning around everyone that had it, but I never got it myself.
Maybe it goes back to that saying, whatever you fear most, you attract what you fear. Mm-hmm. So the fact that everyone else was afraid of COVID, they just kept getting COVID, and you were just like, oh, this is fine.
Just immune.
I'm just going to embrace it. COVID just wanted nothing to do with you.
COVID schmovid. Wasn't there. It didn't get me. I mean, it did once, but then I didn't have any symptoms. Anyway.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so during that time, my dad actually passed away in the June of 2020.
Yeah.
And so I was asked to give the eulogy at his funeral, but I don't like public speaking. So I thought, hey, what can I do that's not speaking but still would be powerful?
Pay some sort of respect.
So I wrote a song.
Okay.
And then, so he died at 49, and then
sorry to hear that.
That's all right. His birthday was the following March. So I was like, I've written this song, I've sung it at the funeral, and lots of people on social media had really beautiful feedback and were really impacted by it.
Yeah.
And so, because he died of a heart attack, I was like, if I were to kind of get this recorded and release it, then maybe if I make any money from it, I can just give it to the British Heart Foundation, which is what he was really passionate about. So I approached some random producers just by Googling people that did that.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, this is the story. I don't have much of a budget, but I really value what you do because I know how hard it is. Is there any chance that you could help me out? And this one guy got back to me who was in Liverpool. So that's 3.5 hours away from Bristol. So he was like, yeah, I would love to. I'll do it at 50% off. I would just really I love it. I love the song. I love everything. So me and my granddad drove up to Liverpool. This guy took it from an acoustic song to, it was still acoustic vibe, but it was mainly just keys and strings, and it sounds so beautiful. Right. So we went up there, recorded it, came back down. A few weeks later, he sent me some rough edits of it, and then I was like, yep, love it. And then on his birthday, his 50th birthday, I released it, and it was definitely eye-opening into the music industry, but it was. I think that's one of my proudest achievements.
I think that's beautiful. That definitely, that's what music is really entailing. It's to sort of share those emotions and And I can't imagine how difficult of a moment it would have been for you to sort of go through that, but to still, turn such a negative aspect of your life into something as beautiful as you did. I'm sure, he would have been so happy at what you produced and obviously the efforts that you went through. But that is amazing, and I'm sure there's many people that would have heard that song, and I'm excited to hear about it now. Definitely after this, we're gonna take the time to go through and listen to it. But I'm sure there were so many people that would have really, in a way, resonated with the message that you would have been conveying through that, and it would have eased some aspect of whatever they were feeling. But that is amazing to see. I guess art in its truest form is really going back to, conveying an emotion and trying to sort of, instead of just words, being able to, not just one sentence, but create just a beautiful chain of words to convey a message. And if you can't do that, instruments and whatnot. So I'm sure even the guitar lessons that you're giving is going to be making quite an impact on everyone.
Yeah, I would hope.
So it's become a bit of a tradition around here for us to, with every single one of our guests, we take the time to go through their life journey and discover everything that they've done. Now, for yourself, I guess there is aspects of Bristol, Adelaide, and those transitions. We have, again, that tradition to ask, what is a local hero that is somebody that you've looked up to, that's given you inspiration about how you want to, potentially pursue business, life, anything that you want to do with your life, and they've really inspired you?
That's a really hard question. Just because of there's so many spheres that I've obviously touched on. It could be music, could be graphic design.
What's the one that just hits the hardest?
I think from Adelaide.
Which aspect would you really call home?
Adelaide, definitely. Now. Probably someone that is not very well known. One of my old pastors, he is just amazing. He, produces and writes music, but he also has like a missions arm where he goes into the community and helps people, and I would just love that. Like as he has an idea, he goes for it, he does it. Like he doesn't let, money or opinions or things like that hold him back. He's just like, if I've got this idea, I'm going to go do it. And that's that. And so, I think he's probably someone that I really look up to in terms of just going. Like, you have an idea, just go for it. Kind of like what you guys have done here with the podcast. Like, you have an idea, let's not, wait around and wait for someone else to do it so we can kind of copy them. It's like, we have this idea, we want to do it, let's do it.
And is that sort of, having met them and having that opportunity to talk with them and, learn from their experiences.
Yeah.
How have you applied that into your life?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with them in like a recording studio. So watching their musical knowledge was extremely eye-opening to my lack of musical knowledge in comparison. So I think the main thing that I took away and still take away now is just their pursuit of growing themselves.
Right.
It's not ever like, even if they are the best at what they do, it's not like, I'm the best so I can stop now. There's always more to learn and there's always more to understand. And their pursuit of gaining knowledge is really high. And so I want to replicate that in myself. I don't ever want to, think that I've made it and that's it. Because there's always more to learn, especially in the ever-evolving creative industry where things are changing. TikTok is getting new trends all the time.
That is correct.
So I think their pursuit of understanding things is really inspiring.
And how have you applied it directly into your life, and what sort of things have you set up to be able to replicate that?
I allocate time in my week, deliberate time, to go, so for example with music, I have allocated a deliberate 2-hour slot. If I miss it, that's unfortunate, but you know, I've tried to be really intentional to be like, in this 2 hours I'm gonna learn more music theory, or I'm gonna learn how to do this thing in Logic to, you know, mix or master or things like that. So I'm constantly like aware of the gaps in my knowledge, and then looking for things in order to be able to fill that gap. Like, how do I then get that knowledge? Right. Rather than just go, I need to do all that. I'll get to it one day.
And just leave it there.
Because otherwise I'll be there forever in limbo land. So I think it's about being really intentional and deliberate in acknowledging the areas of growth, and then not just leaving them at acknowledgement, but doing something about them.
Being proactive about it. Definitely. And I think that's a skill that a lot of people do lack, and is something that no matter how good you are, you can always improve on, and you can always develop. And I guess one last thing I wanted to ask you is, what's a piece of feedback, or what's like a golden nugget of I guess recommendation information that you could have to somebody out there that is potentially, you know, going through that journey of potentially transitioning from a different country to Australia or somewhere else, or trying to go down that path of creative design, or trying to start their own business? What sort of information would you have for them?
Just keep going. Like, I think if you sit too long in the what if, you'll never do it. So I think, you know, I could have sat in the, I really want to move to Australia for so long and then do nothing about it. It's no, I've got this. And if you have, I guess, a conviction on that's what you want to do, stick to that. And you know, there will be moments where you second guess, is this the right thing? Or how do I do this? Or blah, blah, blah. But I think if you're like, I know that this is what I want to do and this is what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to keep going one step at a time. And you'll get there. It might take time. Not everything happens overnight. We're not all Justin Bieber. We don't blow up overnight. Most of life is a journey, and so just keep going.
I think that's definitely a beautiful piece of information, and just reminds everybody that patience is key. But Chloe, thank you very much for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure to take this time, learn about you, who you are, your journey, and about the wonderful things that you're doing within, you know, the voluntary work that you do, but then also with your business, and fingers crossed, you know, that grows, that keeps flourishing, and you get a plethora of different clientele that really wants to work with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.